How's it, guys? You cold day. Well, sunny. Are we grateful for that? Okay, before I digress and go down the rabbit hole. If you've been following my videos, you know I'm reading through the Bible. I'm currently in Joshua. And the more I read the Old Testament, the more I'm like, yes, like the law, because it's primarily the law. I mean, there's the beginning part of it, which is primarily Genesis, where it is pre-law, okay? And then thereafter, from there, from Exodus to Malachi, it's the law. And even though it's compiled of history, poetry, and the prophets, the people who were the authors and who lived those writings out, they lived under the law. I'm mentioning all this to say, in the book of Joshua, Moses has just died, and God does not waste time. Within 24 hours or 48 hours, these people, this multitude of millions, are moving across in the Jordan. And they're not just crossing the Jordan willy-nilly. They are crossing the Jordan under the guidance of God, primarily, with the leadership of Joshua. And at this point, Joshua is the first person that when I try and remember from what I've read in the Bible, it's the first person that gets hands laid on. I guess I feel like there's a revelation there, him being because there's something significant about first mentions in the Bible. So, but this I just noted that he was the first person that hands were laid on, leader to leader, you know. So Joshua gets hands laid on by Moses, and unlike the next leaders, he's not anointed with the oil thing that was done after the book of Judges for kings, you know. So the first thing God says to Joshua is, be strong and courageous. And then he reiterates in the first chapter of Joshua, I think, 3 times, to be strong and courageous. And then God says to not let his word leave his mouth. And I'm doing this video because I realize how we can misunderstand. A lot of us don't know Hebrew or Greek, Christians. So we depend on the interpretations done by scholars of the Bible. And I'm not going to go down the controversial line of what if they, whatever. But what I'm saying is that God has managed to ensure that his word is kept to what he meant to say to humanity. And I find this particularly astounding because currently the world has over 8 billion people. Because, say what you want, these stats are just like an average, you know. And then there have been more people prior to the past 50 years, you know, if you look back to how far man has gone, and man has lived on the earth, and God has kept the Bible consistent, right? And he says to Joshua, be strong and courageous. And he says to not let these words out of your mouth. do not let these words leave your mouth. I thought he meant they must not come out of your mouth, because I'm reading in English, and English has got interpretations of interpretations, because say what you want, English is a mixed masala of many languages. It's got a Germanic base, it's got a heavy French influence, it's picked up everywhere it has traveled, words everywhere it has traveled, it has morphed in the countries it was left behind at, so we interpret then what we see as we read, when we read in English. And as I was reading this, as I'm going through the Old Testament, the first 4 books, they're quite heavy, they're full of information, and I guess that's why it was so slow to go through it. And also the thing that keeps me engaged with the Bible is that I keep seeing threads of Jesus in the Bible, okay? And particularly in Genesis. And then so reading through Numbers and then through Leviticus, that's where I believe a lot of misinterpretation, misunderstanding happens with preaching, because that's how I believe a lot of people today think the Bible is a book of rules and thou shalt not, thou shalt not. People got stuck at the first 3 books of the second and third, the third and fourth book of the Bible, and didn't go further, because if Jesus is throughout the whole book, then you can't stop at the beginning. If I'm making a sweater, I'm crocheting a sweater, I can't stop at the collar and then call it a sweater. I can't make this collar, or let's say making this hoodie and do the hoodie and then call it a hoodie when I've only just done the hood and no sleeves, no body, no zip, and then call it. No, it doesn't work like that. And yet that's how we've treated the Bible. And I realize that's what I've also done, because I've been reading, it doesn't say that those who have a lot, they'll be given more, and those who have little will be taken away from them. That's how I interpret it. That's how I read it. And that's not what it says. So now, I'm reading this and thinking about the book of Joshua that I've been going through, right? And if you think about it, at the time when God said to Joshua to not let these words leave his mouth, and which God clearly meant that what he speaks must be coming out of the word. And the word he had was only the law. He had no New Testament. Jesus had not come physically as yet. And then, guys, I heard a teaching later on that no, that's not what that Matthew chapter is saying, that Matthew verse 13-12. In fact, what it's saying is, to those who listen to my teaching, more understanding will be given, and they will have an abundance of knowledge. But for those who are not listening, even what little understanding they have will be taken away from them. I'm like, I'm blown away. And the reason I'm making this particular video is that how we can let our misunderstanding mislead us. And not only does that mislead us, it's our direction, and it's a wrong direction. And we get understanding, we get wisdom, we get direction when we get the word from God that has been properly taught, and that is being that is clearly anointed by God, and that is clearly being broken down for us to use wherever we may be in life, right? And when you look at, for example, the word that Joshua had, it was the law, and he made good use of that law, and he was prosperous as God said he would be, right? And the reason I bring these two, this Matthew and this Joshua, up is that as I'm reading, I'm quite disturbed by the directive God gave for the Israelites to occupy these new lands, because those new lands are not empty. There's a long list, something like 20 list of kings who got vanquished for lack of a better word, in order for these thousands of Israelites to occupy the land. And as I'm reading them, I'm disturbed because I'm looking at current day Israel, and I'm looking at the grace dispensation Christians are meant to be living in, and I'm looking at how the directive with with Joshua was to just kill everything, kill all, just. And for me, every time I read those words, my mind goes straight to, and babies too, and I'm like, and then so I'm struggling reading through Joshua because of that. And I'm struggling also because I feel like the law is so heavy, guys. And I also realize how we mistakenly think that demanding morality of people outside of grace, how we think that's the right way to go. For example, we talk about things like, we talk about things like if somebody sees the error of their ways, then they'll come right. But in the New Testament, it says that it's the goodness of God that makes a person to come right, that makes a person to change for the good, because that's what we mean when we say if somebody sees the error of their ways, right? But that's not how God works. And if you think about it, the New Testament is woven in the Old Testament. So it's the ultimate plan. The New Testament is the ultimate outcome. And when we look at God and how God has given very stringent and difficult, hard instructions that must be carried to the letter, And I'm like, God is not a psychopath. But here it is. And then I'm reminded of Isaiah, where he says his thoughts are so far above ours, as the earth is from the sky. The sky is from the earth, something like that. And I'm thinking, when we read through the Bible, so this is the culmination of basically what I'm saying, this particular video, is that when we read through the Bible and we come to points we don't understand, it's best to acknowledge to ourselves we don't understand it and take that misunderstanding to God. Because otherwise it's left with us, just as I was left with the misinterpretation of the Bible for 20 years, 25 years, almost 30 years even. Okay? And that is how, and that was a wall that stood between me and growing further in God in a particular area, because I got stuck at that particular misunderstanding because I didn't even think I was misunderstanding. Okay, but now I realize that there was a misunderstanding because I'm getting into the Word a lot more. I'm listening to preachers who are really they are really breaking apart the Word into digestible pieces, if I can put it like that. And I'm not saying this in terms of that they're saying what I want to hear, but my spirit agrees with what I'm hearing. So what I would like to encourage is that we should really get into the Word. We should be hearing the Word. We should be reading the Word. And the reason for that is that our thoughts can run really wild. And the bigger reason is that when we get into God's Word, we really, really now engage with Him, and a lot of our lives' interactions have got Him as a filter. Whatever comes at us is filtered through Him. Unlike when we treat Him as a handbook, a manual, where, oh, this is broken down, where's the manual? And then go read through it. And that makes God stationary and inflexible in our lives. Whereas when we are constantly in the Word, when we are hearing it, when we are reading, when we are learning, when we are engaging with Him, He is organic, if I can put it that way. I find it hard to explain, but God really comes alive in our lives when we allow Him to not stay between our pages. Because I realized that for myself, I treated the book, the Bible, and what I was learning from the Bible very much like a book of spells. If I say, because you hear pastors saying, speak the word, which is correct. However, my speaking was in terms of incantations. Hoping for the best, saying over and over and over again, and hoping that if I keep saying this, eventually, as if it is water I'm drawing out of a well and pouring into a bucket, that eventually this bucket will fill. And in a way, that is how it is, but it's not a magic book. It's not a book of spells. So I'm hoping that somebody hearing this will learn from my crazy mistakes, that God is as alive as we are, and He is understanding as we are able to understand, and thankfully for us, He doesn't have to learn anything about us, but He knows everything about us. And His Word is prepared before time for us. And His Word stands ready to help us. And, like in the book of Joshua, Moses dies and God doesn't take the Israelites through another 3 years teaching them how to get into the land of milk and honey, so that they can be trained or whatever, and then show them His perfect timing. It happened the following day or something like that. Within the week, definitely, it was done. And the fall of Jericho happened under 10 days. after the, or within in a short span of time after these people had crossed the Jordan, and they had war after war after war after that, but all as directive. And all I'm saying is that God does not ask us to be gullible. In fact, He really does not. God does not encourage naivete. He does not encourage being gullible at all. And if you think about it, that is quite true, because He gave the first two human beings the choice to believe or not to believe, and they were gullible. They decided to be gullible, and look what gullibility did to the rest of humanity for eons. So take it from one who has gone through it, and get into the Word. Read the Word as we hear it in John. In the beginning was the Word, and the Word was with God, and the Word was God, and the Word is God. That Jesus is the Son of God, but God, definitely, He is definitely God. He's not lesser, neither is the Holy Spirit. So and we depend, and our lives hinge on God. So yeah, I hope that helps somebody, and thank you for listening. Till next time. Cheers.